Hi, I know it has been a while since I posted anything, especially on pre-colonial history of Africa, but I have had so much going on. Anyway, this month in the United Kingdom, October, is the Black History Month, and it officially comes to an end today. So I decided that I had to do something in honor of Black History Month. I'm going to talk about the Garamantes. The Garamantes were an ancient civilization that existed 2,000 years ago in the heart of the Sahara Desert in Africa. Lest I forget, please follow me at Heaven Sent Planners, both on YouTube and Instagram. It really does encourage me when I see those likes or the follows or just comments, because sometimes it takes me days to do this research. So I need the encouragement, okay? At Heaven Sent Planners. Thank you. So their civilization was at its heart between 500 BC and 400 AD. They were located in the Fezzan, which is in the southern part of Libya. So if you look behind me, it would have been right about there. Yeah, and in this area, the temperature can reach as high as 55 degrees Celsius in the summer, and sometimes even hotter. So it's much hotter than any place that I've ever been or I can imagine. The average rainfall was about half an inch a year, and sometimes it wouldn't rain for years on end. Yet, 2,000 years ago, there was a civilization that was able to thrive in this area. So, one of the things that they did notably was that they created the first urban center in a large desert that was not reliant upon a river. So, human beings, we need water to survive. And people have always lived around a source of fresh water, which would be a stream, a lake, a river. In fact, it wasn't until recently that people have been able to tap into salt water through desalination, as is done in the Middle East. But this was 2,000 years ago. They didn't need to do that. They were able to use their resources, their intellect, and their brilliance to tap into underwater sources of fresh water. They lived in a chain of wadis and oases. Wadis are valleys in the desert. They are usually defined by their sharp depression and the underground streams and rivers which flow into the oasis. So, ordinarily, the oasis should not have been able to provide enough water to maintain this vast empire. But the Garamantes were able to solve this problem. They dug out channels that were about 600 in number and spread across hundreds of miles that were able to channel water from the rock formations, from the underground rock formations where they found the water. These underground rock formations are known as aquifers. They also dug out shafts, which were how they maintained the channels. The rock formations, the aquifers, were on a higher level than the oasis, so they were able to channel the water downwards into a downward flow, which resulted in continuous water for them. In 150 AD, that empire covered about 70,000 square miles. To put that in perspective, Great Britain is about 80,000 square miles. There were three main cities, and then they had other cities, towns, and villages. The capital city, Garama, was situated in Wadi Ajal. Garama had a population of about 4,000 inhabitants. Then it had satellite cities that had a population of about 6,000 inhabitants. But to be honest, the population of Wadi Ajah would have been much larger than that. At one time, it was believed that they had a population of about 50,000 inhabitants in Wadi Ajah alone. Their appearance. Greek and Roman writers sometimes describe them as having the appearance of the Berbers of North Africa and sometimes of the blacks of sub-Saharan Africa. This is not unlike the appearance of people who live in that region today. Archaeological discoveries of skeletons in the region most closely associate them with the peoples of Chad, of Mali, and of Niger. They were a prosperous empire as well. The Greek historian Herodotus wrote about them in the 5th century BC, saying that they were a great nation that farmed dates, herded cattle, and used 4 horse-drawn chariots to hunt Ethiopian cave dwellers living in the desert. In 1960, archaeologists discovered parts of Garama in modern-day Germany, including forts, tombs, and cemeteries. They uncovered houses that were stone-built for the elites and mud houses for the common people. There were Roman-styled bathhouses, Egyptian-styled pyramid tombs, although much smaller than the pyramids of Egypt today. There were temples. One temple had a columned porch and broad set of steps at the entrance. Another one had a narrow entrance lined by 2 pilasters and a colonnade courtyard. The plan and the structure of the buildings, the elaborate molded houses, and the stone buildings all indicate that there were wealthy people that lived in this region. They had a wealthy elite and they both enjoyed and could afford these luxuries. Now, how did they become so advanced, and why do we say that they were advanced? For one, they had a strong military. They were renowned for their military. They, in fact, introduced horses to the desert and had armies of chariots and fought mostly as a cavalry. They were great warriors who were also renowned for their horsemanship. They were known to be fast moving and elusive. In fact, the Roman historian Tacitus said that they raided Roman coastal settlements, coastal settlements along the Mediterranean. And records also have Romans crossing the Sahara to assault them on their own homeland. The introduction of horses as a battle tool and their movements across the Sahara to conduct raids shows a well-developed army. They amassed a large number of slaves as a result of this, and slaves were really a good source of labor. They were a good source of free labor, in fact, that they used to build their society and maintain their society. They also had advanced engineering. So they were able to successfully cultivate the barren desert land through their complex and extensive water irrigation system. They did this by digging out the underground tunnels that we've already spoken about, called fugaras, which were no more than 2 feet wide and about 5 feet high, and they extended for several hundreds of miles. They cultivated the desert and feasted on locally grown dates, grapes, figs, sorghum, millet, barley, and wheat. They even feasted on imported wines and olive oil. And they were able to both feed their community this way and, of course, trade with their agricultural produce. They were known for commerce. They had industry. There's evidence of metalworking, textile production. There were also processing iron, bronze, and possibly gold and silver. They also were known for having control of the caravan trade. So there was a caravan trading route along where they lived, and they controlled that trading route. There were camel trains that would transport goods from Sahara and from sub-Saharan Africa to Roman Mediterranean cities. And the goods that they traded in would include gold, semi-precious stones, salt, ivory, and wild animals. And of course, they also had agriculture, so they were able to produce and to trade in agriculture or to trade in their products. They had a sophisticated lifestyle. Their wealth enabled them to borrow technologies from other cultures to advance their own. There were archaeological discoveries that revealed Roman-style temples that we've already discussed, and bathhouses, Egyptian-designed tombs, and of course their irrigation system was inspired by Persian and Egyptian irrigation methods. They introduced the horse and the camel and wheeled transport to the Sahara, and we know as well that they lived in planned towns. The Garamantes had a written language. They introduced writing to the desert, and these were short inscriptions in the ancient Libyan language, which were composed of circles and crosses, squares, arrows, and zigzags. All in all, we will see that the military might, the commerce, engineering brilliance, and quest for knowledge of the Garamantes enabled them to turn this barren land that nobody would go near or touch today, even if you paid them to. They were able to turn it into something beautiful, something that produced a great amount of wealth for them, turn it into an urban civilization that has put them on the map today. And I bet you didn't believe that such a civilization existed. Well, they did. I hope that we are all able to draw inspiration for them. But in particular, I hope that people of African origin see that we are not less intelligent than anyone else, and that there is really no race that is superior to the black race. In truth, we are all the same. It's just that at this point in time in our history, the dominant civilization would appear to be that of the Europeans. But it wasn't always so. History shows that different people were dominant at different times. For example, the Egyptians of Africa were the most advanced civilization for 3,000 years. And the Garamantes were also a formidable civilization. Today, what they achieved, we would say was impossible. We would. We wouldn't believe it if we didn't have the evidence, but they were able to do it 2,000 years ago. So one way of fighting for progress is to protest, yes. But then another way is to draw on the tenacity, the brilliance, resourcefulness, and the business acumen of the Garamantes, and to be invigorated by their achievements. God bless.